Sometimes we've got animosity with somebody and we want that person to fail. But when that person succeeds, it makes us sad. Why should we have this kind of jealousy towards our enemy and carry the burden and pressures from his or her success? We should learn how to celebrate other people's happiness and work hard so that we can compete them in goodness and not in the matters of jealousy. So it is the way we interpret and react to other people's success which will make us happy, positive, or which will make us sad. In the same fashion, very often we play this blame game. Instead of internalizing or reflecting upon our own mistakes and failures and taking responsibility of our shortcomings, we try to throw it upon the others. As people say, the easiest thing you can find is the fault, and especially the fault in somebody else. Very often we throw the blame upon the others for our failures, but we never credit them for our successes. So if success is ours, the failure should also be ours. So instead of blaming others and carrying the burden with us, we should always reflect inwardly, identify the problem, put it out there, and deal with it. So therefore, from Islamic perspective, as the Quran says, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, nobody carries the burden of anybody else. Your burdens are your own burden. Instead of putting them under the rug, instead of shrugging them off, we as Muslims and true believers are supposed to face them, to analyze them, and to deal with them. Also, there are so many conspiracy theories out there. Sometimes we feel the worst out of the others. Islam tells us to have husn al-dhan, to have the best thinking and expectation of your brother and sisters or fellow human being. But sometimes some of us feel that the whole world is against us. On the national scene, ummah scene, we believe that perhaps the West is conspiring against the whole Muslim world. And it's the American or the Israelis or the French who are there to destroy us. But we do not understand that sometimes we are the utmost enemies of our own selves. Our habits, our institutions, our educational institutes, and the way we handle life sometimes is against Islam and against what makes a person or a community successful. So instead of looking out over there and blaming others for conspiracies, we should look inward and work upon our shortcomings and work hard to compete in the matters of goodness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has told us that competing in the matters of goodness and cooperating in the issues of ta'awanu ala al-birri wa taqwa and the issues of righteousness, goodness, knowledge is what is required of a Muslim. Also, when we have the good feeling about our brothers and we choose to interpret their actions, their statements, and their gestures in a positive way, we do not feel pressurized. We do not carry a huge burden upon ourselves, but we forgive, and always have a sense of solace, happiness, and confidence. It is important for us to start taking responsibility of our actions, to have the best understanding about the others, and to enhance our self-esteem. When our self-esteem is low, then any statement made by anybody, whether positive or negative, could be reflected as something very negative. We need to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of us as the honor vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. All of us, we have got the soul, the special gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of us are the honored servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So our self-esteem is based upon the true servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. So we need to work hard to work upon our self-esteem, and that will make us very good in our relationship with other people, and also happy inside. Some of us, we try to live in the past. Some of us live it in such a fashion that we are not willing to change our habits, change some of the challenges which we are facing, and those challenges might be passed from generation to generation. I have heard this very often from my brothers and sisters. They will sometimes say, oh, this anger issue, we have it in our family. Or this high cholesterol, we have got it in our family. Or the heart attack issue, we have got it in our family. Ya akhi, if it is in the family, you can do something about it. You do not have to just pass on this kind of problem to yourself and to your coming generations. Dig into your heels, rise up, do something against this blood pressure or this cholesterol or something which is bad by changing your bad habits. So if you are able to rise up against this challenge, maybe your coming generations will not suffer from this kind of illness and problem. So therefore, don't just live in the past. Sometimes when we talk to the people about seeking help or going to a professional counselor, very often they say, oh, it does not happen in Pakistan. Nobody has gone in Egypt to the counselors, and for 14 centuries Muslims have been happy. Why we have to go and seek the professional help? But they forget that they are no more in Pakistan or no more in a Muslim country where there are plenty of ways of social support and familial support. Here the situation is very different. So here somebody has to follow the American context and the American solutions to problems which are very often the result of us being part of American society. And seeking professional help or counseling, there's nothing wrong. It is important for us to identify our problem and our challenge, put it out somewhere with the person whom we trust, and then try to seek help and deal with it. So therefore, instead of living in the past or following the same patterns which our forefathers followed and taking the bad habits to our coming generations, we need to start living in the future, realize the circumstances, the society, and the realities which we are living. And some of us sometimes even worry too much about future. We are living today, but we are worried about for our 401k or our social security, you name it. Make the best out of today. As Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, Man istawa yawmahu fahuwa maqboonun. The person whose 2 days are equal and there's no progress taking place in his or her life, that person is a loser. Our today must be better than our yesterday. By taking or making the best out of your present moments, your present today, now and here, you can rectify some of the losses and the mistakes of the past. And you can also secure and guarantee the success in the future. So don't live in the past, just worrying about the hurts and the injuries and the shortcomings as well as the desires which were unfulfilled in the past, and just carrying those burdens and mountains after mountains every day. Let it go. Forget about it, and remember, as the Quran says, Tilka ummatun kad khalat laha ma kasabat wa lakum ma kasabtum wa la tus'aluna amma kanu ya'malun. Sometimes we Muslims have got the tendency that we always show pride in our past. Or this is what our forefathers did. They were the masters of science, technology, politics, and they have ruled the world for 13 consecutive centuries. But these were our forefathers. What is our contribution to the science, to the civilizational aspects of human existence, and even to the well-being of our ummah? Don't you feel that we are sometimes too dependent upon the Western technological as well as scientific expertise? Don't you think that sometimes we are unable even to invent some of the basic things which are necessary for us as a Muslim, and sometimes keep on borrowing this technology from others. So just living in the past and boasting about the scientific and political accomplishment of our forefathers is not going to help us. So therefore we need to live in our present. We need to work hard so that our present and our future and the future of our coming generation is really preserved as well as protected. So therefore living off in the past is not something which Islam wants us. That will make us sad, that will make us, or that will hamper our progress in the future. But we need to live our present and keep on working to make changes in our lifestyles, in our habits, in our thought patterns, and keep working for the proper progress in the future. Sometimes we become sad because we want to control the people around us and also the outcome of events. We want others to think the way we think. Sometimes we want them to believe the way we believe. Very often, if our sons or daughters or even wife sometime or husband comes out of the box or thinks different than us, some of us become very, very nasty, very angry, because we don't want to let the control off. We want to control our surroundings and the people who are around us. We also want to control the circumstances around us. If the circumstances change, which they change very often, and those changes are not to our likings, we feel depressed. But we forget that it is not us who have got the control upon the hearts and the thinking of our brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, our children. They are independent human beings. They have got the right to think differently, to analyze issues and matters differently. So we need to learn how to let go of control and how to accept others as different, and also not to become judgmental about them. When things are not going our way, we become overly critical of others, judgmental, and we try to push them back into the box by means of humiliating them, by means of using sarcastic terms and methodologies. This is not appropriate. That ruins our relationship, and that brings us the sadness. Because if things do not work the way we want, then we feel sad. The best way to react this kind of situation is to understand that we are not the masters of others' thoughts or others' destination. There is the master who created all of us, and he is the one who is directing the affairs of this universe. Our responsibility is to do whatever we can to convince others. Our responsibility is to make sure that we put the utmost effort. We bring in the prayer, the du'as, the supplication. But once we have done whatever we can, and then if the son is not behaving the way we are expecting, or the wife or the husband is not behaving or believing or acting the way we want them to behave or act, then we leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.